First of all, I'd like to wish you happy holiday. For those of you who don't know it, because there may be such people, today is the International Day for Environment Preservation. We are celebrating a lot of holidays. The May just came to an end, which was the month for protection of the environment. The protection of the forest week passed. So we celebrate on all these events because they are a part of our mission and responsibility. And it's always not only to work but also to celebrate. This is the pleasant part of the otherwise complex everyday life. I'm very happy to see you here in a very nice part of Bulgaria. You had an opportunity to try the cherries from this region of Kyustendil. I hope you can feel the smell not only of cherries but also of traditions in this place. It's a very great honor to give the floor to the Deputy Mayor of Kyustendil Municipality, Rusica Plachkova, for a few welcoming words. So I might say something else. Unfortunately, we're meeting you with rain, but anyway, I'd like to thank the Assembly for choosing Kyustendil for holding the annual meeting of environmental experts in municipalities in Bulgaria. I hope the conditions that we have created are good so that you can hold your meeting in a nice atmosphere, so that you can exchange ideas. I can see that the guests and lecturers are nice, so it's going to be an interesting conference. You're going to hear interesting practices from different countries. I hope that you manage to solve some of the problems. There are such problems with waste management, environment preservation. We know what the reasons for this are, but I hope that we can manage to overcome all of our issues. And speaking of, how did you call it? International Day for Environment Preservation. Now, what did you say? That it was an inspiration, a celebration, an occasion to celebrate. No, you mentioned that things are coinciding. So today we signed a contract for funding of the recultivation of the landfill of Kyustendil. I'd like to welcome you on behalf of Peter Pon, of the Mayor of Kyustendil Municipality. I would like to wish this conference good luck and welcome once again. Thank you. This is a nice coincidence, and you will remember being here with this coincidental signature of this financing contract. Another person would like to welcome you. We are partnering with the French Institute and the French Embassy. During the past 5 years, we have been partnering actively with it. You know about the competition Eco-Municipality, organized and initiated by the French Embassy, and which we supported together with the National Association of Municipalities in Bulgaria and a few more municipalities. Some of you already participated, some of them received awards. Do we have people here who went to France? Raise your hand. Yes, we can see them. So these colleagues can tell you in the informal part of the agenda. So this is a nice tradition that we created this year. The competition was for municipalities of up to 10,000 inhabitants. The idea was to encourage these municipalities so that they can take small steps for improving the environment, irrespective of their limited financial and human and other resources. So it is my pleasure to give the floor to Nicolas Maubec, who is a representative of the French Institute and the French Embassy. He's the cooperation attaché. to give you an idea and a notice about the next meeting, we know that it will be in Varna between 9th and 11th of October this year. I hope that the elections are not on these two dates, so that you will have the freedom to come. This meeting, the next meeting, will be different in spirit. Nicola will tell you a few words about it. He has no interpreting headsets, so we'll see if his words and mine will coincide.
Разбирам малко български.
Много добре разбира български. Говори отлично руски, така че разбира малко български.
And I will speak in English. Dear participants, it's an honor to be here in the 52 Assembly of Ecologists from the municipalities of Bulgaria. I'm a newcomer, and I can notice that Bulgaria is facing enormous challenges concerning different environmental issues, and you are dealing with it. It's your job. Concerning energy transition, waste management, air quality, energy efficiency. I'm convinced that it's fundamental to share good practices, good examples, solving challenges that Bulgaria is dealing with. And it's crucial to share these good examples, especially already existing in Bulgaria, to show that it's possible to improve the situation. These good examples give the possibility to implement good practices in other places in Bulgaria. And I think it's the goal of your meeting today. So I'm very pleased to discover these good practices, but most of all, this project of energy efficient domestic heating. And from my point of view, it's a wonderful project because it's a common work with the civil society and municipalities. I think my job is to support and to promote what you are doing. It's what we are trying to do, and so we will be very pleased to meet you in October. We will organize, it's still as a project, but we will work concerning the waste management and the good practices. But once again, what I realize that if we invite foreign experts, it's great to discover their experiences, but it's also very, very important to promote the solutions some of you are finding, because foreign experts, they are working in a different context.
Cooperation with the Zemята Association, we will discuss topics that are related to the project they have implemented and the activities related with the air quality protection and improvement of residential heating. Before we continue with their presentation, I will invite Custodian Municipality environmentalists to introduce us this beautiful piece of land of Bulgaria and the steps they have taken to preserve the environment. Irina, you have the floor, and then we will have the opportunity to hear a little more about the waste management from Stefan Stefanov. Thank you. Dear colleagues, hello and welcome to Kyustendil. I am very happy to see you here. I have known some of you for a long time, others I see for a first time. My name is Irina Velkove and I am an environmental expert in Kyustendil municipality. Over these 3 days, along with the rest, I will be available to you if I can be of any assistance. Now, what I can say about Kyustendil, this is a very beautiful town for all of us that live and work here. I hope that you will like it too. It has over 8,000-year-old history, and the problems that we are solving with engineer Plachkova, because she is in charge of the environmental protection, are familiar to all of you. We are interested in the same things, we face the same problems, and as she said, we are currently working actively on the recultivation of the landfill, and now we will start working on the landfill itself. We are also very actively working with the rest of the municipalities in the region. From Dupnica region, I see my colleagues from Dupnica. I don't see anyone else. We're working together to build the regional landfill in Dupnica, and we will be working on the busy landfills of the composting fields. We are at the start of this project. I hope I will receive assistance from the Ministry of Environment and Waters, and as well from our colleagues that have any experience, richer experience in that area. Personally, I have always thought these meetings very useful so that we can exchange experience and we can be mutually beneficial to each other. Welcome. And if you have any questions, you can ask me as well if the organizers agree. As you already heard, this will probably be the last landfill that Bulgaria is building. We do not have a landfill. We are one of the 5 associations in Bulgaria that do not have a landfill, thanks to the fact that under the previous funding scheme, under the Environmental Protection Operational Program, where our association was a beneficiary. And how can I say it in a more civilized manner? Thanks to 2 environmentalists who opposed the report under the operational program. They actually objected in court, and as you know, the work in court is very slow, and the decision of the first instance court came in at the end of August. They appealed the first instance court at second instance, where the case was scheduled a year and a half after the appeal, and naturally we missed the deadlines under the environmental protection program. So we do not have a landfill, but we have united with the other municipalities, and we, with our joint efforts, we have developed a detailed plan for the building of this landfill. We will build facilities on the territory of the landfill. We still do not have the report of Dupnica municipality, how far they are in the work, because they are still in the process of following the procedure. They have already launched the project. They have already contracted a company. And we have been assured that we will receive funding for 1 cell. Hopefully this will happen pretty soon. Otherwise, we are at dead end to comply with the law. This was direct entry to the topic. I have no doubt that you're quite familiar with the situation. We have many colleagues who have gone through the same problems, but be optimistic. There is light at the end of the tunnel. We have representatives of many regional waste management centers. I see colleagues from Wraca, Burgas, Lovech. Almost everyone is here. Plovdiv is here. Vidin. You already have built landfills. We have not come to Vidin. We have to come and see it personally. We plan to organize a meeting in Vidin. We have not given that up. And because things did not work out in Vidin, the mayor said the whole town is being dug up. I don't want you to come and see this situation. So you're invited to come to Wraca, which also is in the process of working in the process. There are many people with great experience here in this room, which will be very useful in all the steps that you have to go through. But the work with the administration is always very complex. I will say 2 words about these two environmentalists in defense of these environmentalists, because if they were not that convinced that this is the place for the landfill, maybe the fault is of the municipality as well, why this land is more suitable. I am saying that because I think that we need a dialogue, and each one of us who is trying to comply with the law, and then on the other hand, to protect the environment, we have to find common ground, find a way to hear each other, and together to find solutions to the problems. And one last thing about the public discussions that we have all organized. Colleagues, I recommend to you to organize public discussions that are aimed at hearing the public, not a discussion for itself. It is clear that we have these procedures and have to follow them, but its target is to give permission to allow the people to be part of the decision-making process. I apologize for my cell phone ringing. I will turn it off in a minute. We have to hear each other, and today's meeting is an example how the municipalities and the NGOs can be beneficial to each other, can be partners. And by the way, this is one of the starting points which will be used in our conference in Varma. And our goal is to invite the local non-governmental organizations to participate in the meeting. And naturally, everything will be focused on the topics there. We will not have accidental participants. I'm happy to invite our colleagues from the Zazemiata. Gennady Kondarev will take the floor. Before they start, however, yes, you have the floor. I have already invited you. We will continue quickly with one of the key presentations today, which is related to the waste management. I apologize for calling Stefan Stefanov, but if you remember, we did have a director of Waste Directorate in the Ministry of Environment and Waters. We have a long history, short memory. Stefan Alexandrov will present his topic today. Stefan, you have the floor. Thank you, Mrs. Dobrjelieva, for the invitation and for the opportunity to discuss this topic between the institutions and the public, everything that's related to the waste management. And I believe that during these forums we make the decisions to achieve the ambitious goals that have been set by the European Union in waste management. My presentation is focused on that.
My presentation will be on ways to achieve the landfilling targets to do with the circular economy. The legislative package on waste, which was adopted last year, is one of the main measures that the European Union is taking for a planned transition towards a circular economy. This package contains the amendment of 3 directives: the frame directive on waste management, the directive on landfilling, and the directive on package waste. What we can see is that there is an increase in the requirements for recycling. There is a limitation to landfilling of waste. A new target has been introduced by 2033 to limit the recycling to 65% household waste. The landfilling target was not introduced, has not been introduced yet, but landfilling has been limited to 10% of the waste generated. What is currently in the legislation and what can be said to refer to it is the limit on landfilling up to 35% of biodegradable waste, which exists in 95, but this regulation is serious and it will take significant effort by all municipalities to achieve this target. Of course, we have packaging targets which were increased by 70% by 2030. There is a requirement for obligatory separate collection of hazardous waste by 2025, separate treatment of bio-waste by 2023, and obligatory separate treatment of textile waste as a part of the household waste by 2025. There will be indicative target on the European level for decreasing food waste, and the European Commission will develop a methodology with regard to the monitoring, calculating food waste. And on the basis of the information gathered in 2023, there will be a review with regard to the capability or necessity of introducing binding targets with regard to this flow of waste. Of course, there are interim targets for recycling, respectively 55 and 65% in 2025 and 2030, which once again shows that the control with regard to reaching these levels of recycling is serious, and it will take effort by all stakeholders in the process, on the state level and on the municipal level, to achieve these significant percentages which are set as targets. Of course, the new rules for separate collection firstly, separate collection of textiles. There is no legislative framework in Bulgaria to manage these, but we are yet to develop such documents. The separate treatment about degradable waste and the avoidance of these through home composting. This is not a new target for us. With regard to all projects which are funded and are implemented on the operational program now, one of the requirements for providing the funding was for these projects to include a system for separate collection of green waste, but there will be additional efforts. Separate collection of the hazardous waste from the household waste. I would like to note here that on the national level, through the Bulgarian-Swiss program, we are implementing a project which funds the building of 5 regional centers for separate collection of hazardous household waste, and it is going to serve 22 municipalities through mobile installations, through mobile facilities, and they will be in Razgrad, Šumen, Sozopol, Sojedinenie, and Levski. So we are working in this direction, but I'm going to reiterate that it's going to take efforts from all stakeholders. On the national level, as you know, there are 2 main targets by 2020, recycling 50% of household waste, and the target for avoiding landfilling 35% of biodegradable waste by as of 95. Where are we now? There is a table I'm showing on the screen. There is a comparison between the indicators for waste generated in 2014 in the European Union and in Bulgaria versus 2017. So there's a comparison between recycled and generated waste. Probably the picture will be clearer on the next slide, but it is not so obviously. In 2014, 23% of the waste was recycled, while this percentage is 34, or an increase by 11% in 2017. This is data by Eurostat, official data. So this is the total percentage of recycling, including material recycling and composting. Another new idea in the legislative framework on waste management was the reduction of the generation of food waste. The target of food waste here is bound to another target of the United Nations, which says that food waste per capita should be limited by 50%. So we will need to see additional documents adopted on the European Union level, and as we said, new targets will be adopted. With regard to the target on limiting the biodegradable waste landfilling by 2035, I would like to show you a table. These are the quantities of waste landfilled in Bulgaria in 2014 and 2017. Once again, you can see an increase in the results and decrease in landfilling by 8%. You can also see that there are measures for avoiding waste generation, and waste generated in the country has decreased by 100,000 tons. What are the ways to achieve the household waste targets? Firstly, the main element in waste management is improving the separate collection in any form, which leads to a qualitative and quantitative improvement of the recyclable fraction which is collected, and respectively the facilities for waste treatment achieve better results in recycling. For every municipality, it is important to have a set of facilities for waste treatment. In the beginning of the discussion, someone mentioned the landfills. They are an important element in Bulgaria with regard to the fact that for the first time in Bulgaria we constructed and still continue to construct more, but there are now 55 landfills which meet the regulatory requirements because they have filters. They have all the infrastructure in place which is necessary for ensuring a safe and environmentally friendly processing of the waste. But we should think about constructing new facilities which decrease the fraction of residual waste. So we should build composting for anaerobic composting, for collecting large-scale waste processing centers, for repair of waste centers, for collecting hazardous waste, so that the fraction which reaches the landfill is minimal, and so that the life of the currently existing landfills is maximum. Let's hope that these will be the last landfills that we construct in Bulgaria, in view of the policy which is on the European level. Thirdly, I would say that information awareness raised in the direction of preventing the generation of waste and encouraging reuse to reduce waste. I'm open to any questions you may have or for any discussions. This was my presentation. Colleagues, I would like to ask you for something. Those of you who have already achieved the recycling targets, who have reached the 50%, can you raise your hand, please, to see whether there are such municipalities? Can you raise your hand higher, please? Also, we have one hand. We have one hand, or two. Plovdiv, Rakovsky. In 2018, 120 households got involved. They deposited separately their green waste, like garden waste, like roses, grass. In 2018, for fewer than 3 months, we managed to deposit 9,000 kilograms, to compost them, sorry. We managed to compost more than 9,600 kilograms. This year the target is to reach 1,200 households and to decrease the waste in this way. We're going to work a lot for separate waste collection. We are working with the hotel managers and businesses. Which other municipalities rose their hands? Please, tell us about your experience. Please say your name first. Kalina Georgieva from General Toshevo municipality. Since 2015, we introduced such a system. In the beginning, we used 70 brown containers. Next year, we raised them by another 70. And they are collected once a week, but we cannot achieve the results that somebody else mentioned. So this is why I asked them, how do you manage to achieve the results? Because these containers need to be collected more times a week in order to achieve something. These containers are always full from the gardens and the parks that we mow, but from 5,000 tons a year we collect only 500. This is not a good result, but you have taken the first steps. Which other municipalities rose their hands that they have introduced separate collection by households of bio-waste? Somebody else rose their hand. Are you scared to speak on the mic? There was somebody else who rose their hands. You're together. Okay, so there are two municipalities from the participating municipalities which have managed to do so. It's a complex issue. It's not an easy thing.
Once again, you need to share. It's very important. If I'm inviting a guy who will explain how, it's what we will do. we will invite experts. But you have your local legislation, your local context, so it's better when you have a good example among you and that you are sharing it. And I would like to share, there is an association, NGO in Sofia, Gorishka. Maybe some of you heard about it. It's supported by Magdalena Malieva. I think you know her, definitely sure. And they have two projects, great projects, and one of them is recycling waste. And they began with a restaurant, they did it, and now it's a neighborhood in Sofia. And I propose to invite her to present you this great project, because it's very concrete, and it's what you need. Because we can speak a lot, but you need such, and I would like to promote them, because you are working in different cities. This association is also promoting shared gardens. And it's a wonderful project, but it's difficult from a legislative point of view to develop it, but they did it. And people are very, they want to have a small piece of garden in their towns. And I think Plovdiv, Burgas, in big towns, it's very actual. And she could share with you. So I think, once again, when there are such good initiatives locally, we have to promote it. And for you, it's like we have work concerning sustainable cities, sustainable development in cities with Ecology, and we are thinking to publish a small book with good examples. And concerning waste, there are great examples in Bulgaria. Asia knows better than me these examples. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Nicola. I will just add something to what he said about sharing. We finally reached the age of sharing. Now we share information, knowledge, housing, we share cars. This morning, Gennady told me about shared buying of cars, not just use of cars, not just shared buying of one, but shared buying of several cars. And of course, their use, shared buying of houses. 10 people buy a house at a sea, and they agree to use it each for 2 weeks, for example. All this sharing opens many opportunities in today's society for communication and to provide experience already gained or assets. This is a huge wealth for today's society, and sharing good practices like what we do for I don't know how many years, 27 maybe more years in this association of Bulgarian Association of Municipal Environmental Experts. We learn from the others' mistakes. Gurichka has representatives here from several regions. I don't see them at the moment. I don't see them where they are. Over there. What region? District of Chocopo district. I think Oboriste was here too. I'm not sure if you worked with Gurichka, but we at least two Sofia districts that can give you some information. Of course, Gurichka has a very good example that they can give on national level. This is the goal of sharing. And I hope we will continue sharing with in our next topics. And if you have any questions to Stefan, you can ask them now. If you don't have any questions, Stefan is here today and tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. You can cross-question him informally, of course. But we will find him in the spa or the pool on a regular basis. Thank you, Stefan. And now it's the turn of our partners from Zazemyata, Gennady Kundarev. Hello, I'm Gennady Kundarev from Environmental Association Zazemiata for the Earth, and I will also say welcome to everyone because we were planning to organize this forum for a very long time, but you are our host today for having this invitation today and for being able to realize that synergy. Our idea was to organize a small forum where we can invite colleagues from the Western Balkans, from Eastern Europe to talk about this huge topic of providing energy efficient heating, because this is a problem not only in Bulgaria but all the countries in the region. We share many common things, as you will see from the next presentations. The importance, significance of this topic, I will not start with it right away because I am quite certain the next 2 hours you will learn quite much more, because this is a very important topic for us and it's a priority and will become a greater priority. I will only ask, last year in December when we had our first presentation on the topic, we didn't have that much time as we will have today, but was there any one of you, or are you all new people here? Just raise your hands to give us a sign that we had someone present there. This is great. If there are many hands risen here, then probably you will be aware of many of the new things, especially about the pilot project that was implemented in Novi Iskra region in cooperation with Sofia municipality. The first panel that we will start our brief break will tell us the similar problems and about many of the solutions in the region. But first we will hear presentation from the Lombardia region. And Italy generally has a comprehensive concept on how to dispose of solid fuels, introducing certain standards and programs that introduce energy efficient heating. Then we will learn a little more about the situation in Hungary, where they have launched certain programs, but the things related to solid fuel burning are very similar to those in Bulgaria. And then we will continue with two more interesting presentations from the Western Balkans. Our colleagues from Bosnia, Herzegovina, and North Macedonia will tell us about the situation in their countries and the projects and programs that have already been launched or will be launched in the future. And I hope they will inspire many of our municipalities on how to solve the problems. Now, while we have a brief break to start the presentations, I invite you to find your headsets for the simultaneous interpretation during the entire conference. Anyone who is afraid that will not be able to understand, you can find a headset for interpretation, and be patient because the program was changed in the last minute. The guests we expected from Sofia municipality sadly could not come, which we learned only yesterday. And we took alternative video interview from a representative of the new program related to the replacement of household heating systems. Our video quality is not perfect, but it is very understandable, and I ask for apologies for the technical problems.
I am Guido Lanzani. I am the responsible of air quality unit of ARPA Lombardia, the Environmental Protection Agency of Lombardia region. Lombardia is in the middle of Po Valley, in the northern part of Italy. It has more or less 10 million of inhabitants. Milano is in the center of Lombardia and it has 1.3 million of inhabitants. Air quality in Lombardia is improving, but we have still problems with PM10, PM2.5 and NO2. We have also problems with the BHP, benzoypyrene, above all in the areas where wood burning is more used. If we look at the emission inventory data, we can see that primary PM10 emissions are related to wood burning emissions. In the town, traffic is still the first source, but if we consider the whole region, wood burning is the first source of PM10 primary emissions. Really, wood burning is important also for BHP, benzoypyrene emissions. 70% of these polycyclic hydrocarbon comes from wood stoves and fireplaces. So, what we tried to do? First of all, we classified the stoves. A system of classification of 5 stars. The 3-star stoves are the stoves that follow the rules of eco-design directive. We have also stoves better than the eco-design stoves and stoves worse than that. We put in place rules of maintenance and control because it is very important also to have a good maintenance of stoves, and rules for installation. Then we tried to incentivize people to substitute their old stove with a new one. How we try to do that? First of all, putting in place a step-by-step, more stringent rules on the use. So, at the beginning, we banned the open fireplaces, then the 2-star fireplaces. Now, you can use only a 3-star stove, so a stove that is compliant with eco-design rules. But it is expensive. No all people can do that. So, in Italy, there is a system that permits to have back till 75% of money spent to buy the stoves as discount on taxes. In 10 years, you have back 65% of what you have spent at the beginning to buy the stove. It is not a simple path, because we have, first of all, to convince people that it is important to use good stoves and to use them well, because it is also important to avoid to put, for example, waste in the stove. Then we have also to solve legal problems, because for us it is not possible to go into the houses and to control the stoves. But we ask to everyone to register their stove in a database, and so we have the possibility to control the real use of good stove. Then there is also a problem of going on in the development of better stoves, so we hope to have in future really the possibility to use wood as an alternative fuel to natural gas with emission not so different from them. If I look at the evolution of the use of stoves in Lombardia, I see that from 2008 we began to use pellet stoves or best available technology stoves, BAT stoves. The total number of stoves is increasing, so we have not decreased the use of wood. But considering that the pellet stoves have lower emission than the older ones, we have an increase in the total number of stoves, but this increase didn't give an increase in emission, but a decrease. So you can see that we have an increase in the number of stoves used, but we have a decrease in the emissions. So this system permits to us to improve air quality at the end. So a lot has been done, a lot must be done also now. Thank you very much for your attention.
We also thank Guido Lanzani for this presentation, which he sent us. The good side of people not coming here straight is that we saved on CO2 emissions from the transport here. But it's a pity that you cannot pose questions to him. Nevertheless, in the end, there will be sessions of Q&A. So if you have something important to ask towards the presenters who are absent now, we're going to try to collect these questions and try to provide the answers for you. Just a remark. The recovery of 75%, the reimbursement of 75% of the cost of the newly bought stoves. What is the mechanism? Because I couldn't get this. This is a good question that we can ask Guido for details. He only gave a rough overview. Through taxes, but which taxes? For the real estate or what? This figure is something he mentioned. He said that we should be careful with this figure. The precise percent is 65% as a tax credit, not 75. He mentioned the 75%, but this was his technical error. The true percentage is 65%. When Ivalo speaks, we're going to collect the questions. He has communicated directly with Guido Lanzani. But really, it is through taxes that this amount is reimbursed. This is not direct funding through a grant scheme. In the slides, the presenter is Csaba Vaszko from Hungary as an expert who is working on structuring public funding programs. He is working in climate change issues, and he's going to tell us about the problem of coal burning in households and what is planned as measures so that Hungary overcomes this problem.
My name is Csaba Vaszko. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers very much for giving me the opportunity to speak here today virtually to you. I'm a freelance consultant. My working area is climate change and energy, and I work for different clients like the government, local municipalities, private sector companies or NGOs. I'm going to give you a brief overview of residential heating in Hungary with special regard to coal utilization in households, and I'm going to show you my slideshow. I would like to move on to the next slide, which says that the residential sector is the largest consuming sector in terms of energy. Let me give you a brief summary. The residential sector is the largest consuming sector with a share of 40% of total final consumption. So 40% of our energy is consumed by the residential sector, by buildings and households, and 2/3 part of this energy is consumed for heating houses. And if you want to better understand the heating, it has to be seen that the share of natural gas in total household space heating in energy use has decreased from 64% to 49% in the last 20 years, while the share of solid biofuels like coal, firewood or waste increased its share from 8% to 40% in the last 20 years. So we move on to the next slide. We have, which says that we have air pollution problems in Hungary, and much of the air quality problems are linked to non-efficient heating in houses. So for example, the maps on the left slide show the high PM10 concentration levels, particulate matter. The picture in the bottom left-hand corner shows that the average value on one day was roughly 500% of the limit value for health, which means that it was 5 times higher than the limit value for health. So the darker the country on that picture, the higher the PM10 concentration above the threshold for health. The figure on the right side shows the lost years of healthy life in some EU member countries, and it shows that in some countries this value is similar to countries often associated very poor air quality, such as China or India. And according to the ministry, 80% in Hungary of these problems is caused by non-efficient residential heating. Why? Because they use low-quality wood, low-quality fire coal, and low-quality waste in very old ovens and furnaces or outdated combustions without any filtering technology. We move on to the next slide. Certainly we are interested in where the high PM10 concentration level comes from. And according to this bar chart, comes from the ministry, the high level of concentration comes from household heating, 45%. Now we move on to the next slide. If we want to better understand our residential sector, we need to segmentate our building stock. This means that we have to differentiate and define different subgroups of buildings based on different technology, age, or efficiency, or how many people are living in these buildings. In Hungary, we have 3 big groups: family houses, traditional multi-apartment buildings, and industrialized multi-apartment buildings. This is the panel houses. This graph shows that the biggest subgroup is the family houses, and the red color indicates that this group has the lowest efficiency. The problem is that the past governmental residential energy efficiency programs have been focusing mainly on panel houses, where fewer people living and the efficiency is slightly better than in the family houses. So the first exercise to find the right focus of residential heating improvement. Now we move on to the next slide. The second segmentation exercise is defining subgroups of buildings where based on heating technologies. So we have 4 different subgroups. Family houses that use gas boilers, stoves and furnaces, and gas convection heaters. The second is the multi-apartment, buildings with less than 10 apartments. Gas boilers, gas convection heaters, and mixed solutions are used. Prefabricated or panel houses, they use 100% district heating. And finally, the residential buildings with more than 10 apartments, other than panel houses. They use gas boilers, gas convection heaters, district heating, and mixed solutions. So now we have the buildings, the heating technologies, and the fuel. This is what we all want to change. And we need to identify the first group to start with. Now we move on to the next slide. And this group is the households that use coal for household heating. In Hungary, we have 2 big mines, and these produce 8 million tons of lignite annually. 97% of this lignite goes to power production, while 3% is going to the residential market for household heating. This residential part is 270 tons. 270 tons of lignite annually. This is the left column. On the other hand, the right column shows that we have small mines as well, and these mines produce 80,000 tons of low-quality coal to the residential market for household heating. This is altogether 350,000 tons of coal or lignite annually, and approximately 100,000 households use this lignite for household heating. This is the first group where we should improve residential heating. We move on to the next slide. What does the government do about it? The government launched the social fuel program in 2011, and in this framework the government gives financial support to local governments so they can buy low quality coal or firewood at low price, and the local governments sell this coal or firewood to families. Small villages are eligible only, and on the left hand graph you can see that already 180,000 families get firewood or coal annually, and its total cost is about 17 million euros. On the right side, you can see a map which shows the spatial distribution of the villages that use coal in this program for household building, household heating. The bigger the red circles are, the coal or lignite consumption is bigger in these villages. We move on to the next slide. If we look at the coal part of this social fuel program, we can see that last year 242 settlements got coal for house heating in this program. This is 13,500 tons of coal or lignite, and it was distributed to 25,000 households across the country. Is this good? Not really, because it has a very counterproductive effect on energy efficiency. This means that people in these houses do not invest anything in renovation, building renovation, because they rely on cheap coal, while they have health problems continuously as well. So this program leads to missing investment and missing behavior change. We move on to the next slide. If we want to try to replace coal, it's not a complicated thing. We have calculated. We just selected 5 villages where the coal consumption for residential heating is high, and we calculated the cost of shallow building retrofit, renovation, the change of fuel, and the change of combustion heating technology. And we come up with a 4.6 million euros total cost. And this is the cost of more efficient residential heating in one small villages. We move on to the next slide. I was required to tell something about the initiatives that have been introduced in Hungary, mainly by the government, to improve residential heating. I'm not going to read this all, but one of the first programs is the panel houses. It was launched in 2008 and 9. And 30% in this program, 35% of all panel buildings have been renovated between 2008 and 2015. And this program has reached about 330,000 households. This was about energy efficiency. The second, a new loan scheme was introduced in 2017 to trigger the energy efficient building renovations in the residential building sector. It was interest-free loan introduced by the Hungarian Development Bank through EU funds. Again, it was about energy efficiency, and it is about energy efficiency investments. The third is another program. This is a Worms at Homes program. It is financed through from revenues from the sales of Kyoto units in the framework of the Green Investment Scheme by the relevant ministries, and this ensures non-refundable funding for energy efficiency. And it has reached already 900 homes and resulting in calculated annual savings of 15 gigajoule per year. And there are other regulations, for example, new efficiency and emission limits for standalone and central heating, solid fuel and gas boilers. And there is a campaign as well, a governmental campaign on raising awareness on the negative impact of wrong heating practices. And we move on to the next slide. This is basically a brief list of recommendations. It starts with that the first exercise is the proper assessment of the building stock in order to identify the focus of any program. The second is the segmentation exercise should be done for heating systems and fuels. The third message is that the coal is not part of any solution because it's very counterproductive and it leads to missing efficiency investment and behavior change, and it should not be incentivized. And the next is always building efficiency comes first, and then the heating system renovation and the fuel change. And finally, a good combination of incentives, regulations, awareness raising campaigns are required to achieve more efficient residential heating. And finally, I would like to thank you very much for your kind attention, and I wish you very efficient further discussions. Thank you very much.
I hope that you found the presentation interesting. Hungary is a country that is very similar to ours. Usually they're a few steps ahead of us. It is an example of a country that apparently is well aware of the problems related to household heating and presents it in numbers that something that in Bulgaria needs to be done better. But we're making efforts in that direction as well. Now, I would like to invite Denis Žiško, who is working with the Ecology and Energy Center. He is a resident of Tuzla, a town which has serious problems with air quality, both in terms of household heating and the fact that it hosts a very large thermal plant which has very lower standards on coal combustion than those in the European Union. And now Denis will tell us about the very interesting problem that has been started with the funds from that central.
Floor is mine. Okay. Well, first of all, thanks for the invitation and, well, for the opportunity to share our experiences. And yeah, this will be something, well, maybe a practical example of cooperation of civil society and the authorities you mentioned. And it's an example of good and bad things that could happen in this cooperation. So basically well, as an introduction to the thing, to this program we have started, or the municipality has started just recently, I'll give you a short background of the history of the problem, basically. Here you see my hometown, Tuzla. Well, this can be either winter or summer. If you have the temperature indoors and everything, you have the smog down there and nothing is moving. The reason why I've got involved in the air pollution issues is basically this. We have a very old coal power plant, and my main work is focused basically on phasing out coal. So my NGO and people I work with feel that it's time for decarbonization of energy system and final energy transition to renewables and of course reduction of CO2 emissions, you know, climate change and the stuff you've probably heard about, 1.5 degrees until 2050, otherwise we are gone. Anyway, so that's the main problem. As you can see, I mean, it's not just the winter, you have the same pollution during the summer also. And of course we have the household heating. In Tuzla area we have, well, it's a coal mining area with, let's say, 2 types of lignite. Population is roughly 140,000, roughly. I mean, we had the census a few years back, but because of the political situation in Bosnia, it's very difficult to know exactly. Anyway, but we won't go there. Yeah. Okay, so lignite we use, as I said, we have 2 types. We have the standard lignite, which is lower caloric value, but it has lower also content of sulfur. And we have the other type of lignite, which we call brown coal, which has more caloric value, but it's polluting more. It has very high percentage of sulfur. And usually that's used in the boilers with the individual central heating systems. These are some statistics. I mean, you'll get these slides, so I assume if you're interested in statistics, I mean, you can find them here. Roughly in the Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina, 70 million tons. 85% is burned in coal plants, and the rest is industry, some is exported. As I mentioned, the sulfur dioxide problem, just the electricity plant you saw on the first slide emits 70,000 tons of SO2 annually. So that's a huge problem, and that's the problem present in most of the countries in the Balkans. Basically, none of the coal power plants in the Balkans has desulfurization equipment installed, and they pollute more than 250 coal plants in Europe. Yeah. You'll get these slides, so I won't focus on TPP because, yeah. So we had this coal plant for the last 50-something years, and we sort of got used to it. We got used to the pollution. But then at one point, I mean, well, we wanted to show that it's not something we have to get used to, it's something we have to deal with, and it's something we have to sort out somehow and put the pressure on authorities to start working on that problem. So back in 2013, we have produced this analysis where we have actually analyzed the health costs caused by the pollution from the coal plant and came up to an annual figure of 99 million. Which is basically in days lost, years lost, and everything else, which is paid by, well, from the pockets of the population. As a reaction to that, we had first demonstrations in front of the coal plant, which were actually, in a way, starting to address the issue of pollution and raising awareness of the population that there is something which is killing them and nothing is done to prevent that. So that was the first reaction. And as a reaction to that, the local authority, now we come to the cooperation, the local authority that was trying to get through the federal government a legislation where they, through which the local authority would benefit from the coal production, this push was not successful until the demonstration started. So basically, after the demonstrations and all the way through 2014, we were working together with the local authorities, pushing the higher level authority to adopt this legislation where the municipalities where the coal plants are based would be compensated for the health problems that are created by this pollution on an annual basis. So this was the result. So we managed to get, well, this is the calculation. Roughly now, after 1st of January 2015, Tuzla municipality is getting around 2.5 million euros from the electricity company that goes into the budget. And we were all very happy. We got the money, and that money was supposed to be spent in prevention of pollution. But, as it usually happens with the authorities, sorry for the authorities here, there's always a lack of money. So that money ended up in other priorities, and a very, very small amount was, in a way, given for the extension of the district heating system, which is connected to the same coal power plant, which, in a way, did not result in significant reduction of pollution, especially when we come to the individual households. Some of the areas of the town, we had cases of individual households connecting to the district heating, but not as much as we wanted. Here, there are several graphs, which again you can see in the presentation when you get it, where you see how bad the situation is in Tuzla through 7 years. I mean, you see this is, yeah, sulfur dioxide. The limit is 50 micrograms. This is the red line, and you can see how often we are above that line. The same thing goes for, yeah, this is for 1 month. The legislation says that you can be breached just 3 times in 1 year. We had it 25 times just in 1 month. No reaction from the authorities. Nothing was done to stop that. And it goes on and on. The same thing for PM2.5. So all these pollutants are basically killing people. What's this? Okay. So, after all this, the people got angry with the local authorities because, in a way, we helped them to get these 2.5 million, pressuring the higher level authority. And then not much was invested in proper pollution measures. So in February 2018, after again another very polluted winter, we had other demonstrations. And finally, the local authorities, here we had a few thousand people. First one was less. Finally, the local authorities realized that if they don't do something concrete for the individual households, they'll have these demonstrations more and more often. And then they started talking to us again. And we came up with the idea that that was materialized, let's say, last November. Finally, they've decided to allocate 250,000 euros, which is just 10% of the amount they get, but it's something, for a project which would basically subsidize two things. So we have two types of beneficiaries. One is subsidizing the weatherproofing of the building, of the house. Well, I mean, insulation, change of windows and insulation. So basically improving the insulation of the house until a certain level of kilowatts per square meter of, I mean, technical stuff. I mean, there's no need for you to know technical stuff. So that's one part, and it goes up to 50% of the investment, or a maximum of 2,500 euros, or 5,000 km. The other condition for that is that the households that receive this subsidy would commit themselves to connect either to the existing pipeline for the district heating system in next 2 years, or to apply for the second part of this similar program, which is actually installing or replacing the coal boilers with heat pumps. And that's exactly what I want to promote here, and basically promote as the best solution. That's my opinion, because that way you actually completely eliminate the pollution. The same thing goes, financially talking, the same subsidy or the same amount goes for the replacement of be it wooden stoves or coal burning stoves with heat pumps, with additional condition that the house has to be efficiently insulated up to a certain standard, because otherwise these heat pumps will not function properly. And the calculation says that if the house is properly insulated, the heating at the end of the month will be the cheapest heating compared to district heating and compared to coal. Cheaper, and not to talk about the luxury of not having to clean anything or whatever. Some people criticize this because it is a fairly big investment. It's more than 5,000 or 6,000 euros because you have to buy everything and replace it. But the point is that this is not a social program. This is a program to reduce or eliminate pollution from the households in a highly polluted area. So, and by doing this, you are actually skipping this transition solution, which is promoted by other programs, where they replace bad stoves with more efficient stoves, but even more efficient stoves pollute. And not to mention that they emit CO2 and everything else. So if we are going to decarbonize the energy system also refers to household heating. Yeah, so basically I think that's because he's looking with, yeah, I have to finish. Yes. Anyway, yeah, if you have any questions, I'm here to answer them. Yeah, thank you.
Of the Friends of the Earth Europe network. Good morning.
Dobro jutro. I'm Jagoda Munic, Director of Friends of the Earth Europe. That's a network that has member groups in more than 30 countries across Europe, and Zazemjata is our member in Bulgaria. We are here in Ildenzi at annual General Assembly of the network, which is every year happening in another country in Europe, and this year we are kindly hosted by Friends of Bulgaria. And I just want to say that we do support all the activities they are doing. It was great to know about nature and environment of Bulgaria. And quality of air is one of important issues here in Bulgaria, but also in Balkans. We know that this is one of the most polluted parts in Europe in terms of air quality, and that's why all efforts that are preventing that pollution and lowering the pollution and increase health of people that is impacted by air pollution, it's very welcomed, and we should make a quick progress to improve air quality, but also to contribute to prevention of climate change.
Hello, my name is Maria. I work as a chief mate on board the Rainbow Warrior. Now we are in Varna. I'm very happy to be part of the United for Climate campaign. I congratulate you to be here trying to find solution for a more sustainable heat.
My name is Meglena Antonov. I'm coordinator of the program for climate and energy. We're in Varna, and yesterday the Greenpeace warrior came here. It's a part of a tour for sending a message to European leaders to overcome the climate crisis that we're facing. I would like to congratulate you that you're participating in this conference organized by the Zemята, because finding solutions for alternative heating sources are one of the ways to overcome this crisis. I wish success to your conference.
Hello everyone, I'm Davor Pehchevski from Ekosvest Skopje, North Macedonia. Elena was announced in the agenda, but she was not able to come, so I'm her last-minute replacement. So here I will try to present some of the challenges we have at the moment about implementing the national plan for clean air. And like we already saw before in the presentation about Italy, some of the challenges we have now are actually solved with the Eco Design Directive and other EU legislation that you have in place here. So here you can see Skopje, or you think you can see Skopje in the winter. So in 2014, a study was done together with the Finnish Meteorological Institute to actually find out where the pollution comes from in Skopje. The results are this. You can see that mostly is from household heating, 32% from PM10 pollution, 36% from PM2.5. But you can also see that the industry and the traffic also have a big portion of the pollution. And soil pollution, which is actually not really defined good here, but it's something that comes from agricultural sources mostly. And after that, the UNDP office in Skopje did a survey from households to identify what are actually how are actually the households heating themselves. So you can see that here in the capital, when we do have central heating, only 21% of the Skopje agglomeration is heated with the central heating. You can find more details on the webpage skopje.zagrava.mk. One of the you can see that 45% use wood for heating. One of the worst things that came out of this survey is that over 90% of the homes do not have any thermic insulation on their facades and roofs. And wood heating prevails in 30% of urban areas, but in 85% of rural areas of the Skopje agglomeration. Households' income with lower than 9,000 denars, 150 euros, hit only 25 to 33% of their homes. These are the energy poor people, And then we have that 40% of the respondents stated that their choice of heating system is based mostly on the monthly heating bill. And only 1% of the respondents made a decision based on whether the heating system is polluting. But on the more positive side is the response from the people was that if the price is the same, most of them would choose central heating and other more less polluting or more energy efficient heating systems. Based on this, UNDP also made a roadmap for reducing local air pollution caused by household heating, and it has mostly measures to improve energy efficiency, change the way of heating, and then increase the coverage of central heating in the city. But it also has short-term, middle-term, and long-term measures and targets and everything. And it's a really nice study done by the UNDP. So what we pushed for and managed to do is to put all, not all, but many of these measures in the National Plan for Clean Air 2018-2020. I'm really happy that we actually, for the first time, have a middle-term strategy to tackle air pollution, and for the first time we have a dedicated budget to do this. You can see here are the basic measures included in the national plan. Improved monitoring, increased capacities of inspectorates, raising public awareness, reduction of emissions from households, from transport sector and from industry, and then urban greenery and waste management. I must say that we are not completely happy with this plan, but considering this is something that finally, something is happening in our country after 10 years of protests and fighting, we kind of decided to go with this plan and to solve some of the challenges so that we can have the best results from this plan in the middle term until the end of next year. So specifically for the reduction of emissions of household heating, here are some of the main measures included in the plan. The important one is here, the reduction of value-added tax for central heating from 18% to 5%. And also subsidies. Okay, so this is not subsidies, but this is here subsidies. 20,000 households to replace old stoves with high-efficient wood or pellet boilers. 20,000 households to start using inverter air conditioning units. And 10,000 households to improve the energy efficiency. Subsidies? Yeah. These are all through subsidies, measures through subsidies. And another thing that is really important is prohibited sale of coal for heating purposes. And the law is under preparation now, and it should be finished by the end of this year. What we managed to add in the program for implementation of the plan on the government level is to actually the government to start by changing the heating systems in public institutions, schools, student housing, etc. This is actually here student housing in the city center in Skopje. And subsidies for heat pumps, it's more efficient and less polluting than any wood or pellet boilers. The main shortcoming is that we did not get subsidies for photovoltaic thermal heat collectors. So I'll move on to the challenges for implementation of this plan. First thing is that most of the subsidies are given or were given in the past by the first come, first served principle. That means that only people that can actually go and buy the new boilers and then getting reimbursed for by the municipality. And this is bad because the energy poor people are not getting anything, and then they keep polluting, and they keep using old stoves or even waste for heating. So one of the solutions we gave to the government is to give boilers to targeted energy poor families for extended use over several years, and then they get ownership of the boilers after 5, 6, 10 years, whatever. Another thing that was mentioned in the presentation from Italy that is actually solved with the Eco Design Directive. New does not always mean efficient. Here on the image you can see, I think the first one was a gas-powered heater for 60 euros. And this is a wood boiler for something like 110 euros. The problem here is the government is giving subsidies for this for some time now. And the market is flooded with cheap boilers and heaters that are not always compliant with energy efficiency and emission standards. So in the end, we give public money for subsidies for boilers that are not actually reducing the air pollution in Skopje. The possible solution here: adopt bylaws that are actually compliant with the Eco Design Directive, that would regulate the minimum standards for stoves and boilers, but also for the firewood and for the pellets. The value-added tax reduction for the central heating, it's one of the good measures, but the implementation must be done properly. Otherwise, it won't change anything in the city, basically. The low energy efficiency of buildings does not allow for full utilization of benefits from central heating. I can say from my personal example, my apartment has central heating, and the temperature in the apartment during the winter is 16 degrees. And the additional equipment to regulate the temperature is quite expensive, and the companies don't give any discounts or free equipment for people who want to use central heating, and that is actually one of the solutions that can be one of the solutions for this challenge here. I won't get into what I personally think about natural gas or what my organization thinks about it. It's a fossil fuel, so we don't want to be dependent on it. But since we are already building infrastructure and we are already destroying forests and mountains to build that infrastructure, the main gas corridors are already under construction. But the problem here is that new buildings and new houses in the city don't actually have gas connections. So what is the purpose of building all the gas corridors if you don't have gas connections in the houses themselves? So one of the things is here to be done is to make to push for better coordination between the authorities that are actually responsible for construction permits and stuff like that, and the authorities that are actually working on the implementation of the Clean Air Plan. And I think this was the last one, inspection, inspection, inspection. One of the problems we have is that the inspectors, the legal framework does not allow inspectors to monitor individual households, and they don't have the resources anyway to do that. And here we are in discussion with the city of Skopje that is already implementing a project for training of chimney sweepers. So that sweepers are actually trained to monitor the performance of individual household heating and to monitor the implementation of all these support measures that are in the Clean Air Plan. Thank you for your attention.